Hi, and welcome to another episode of Haltech Heroes. Today, we're on the Gold Coast in Queensland. We're here at ASG Motorsport with Aaron Gregory, and he's about to show us through his awesome Torana.
Before ASG Motorsports, how do you even know how to build this? Like, where did you come from, or where did you start?
I started here in Currumbin, believe it or not, as an apprentice. I did my time as a cabinet maker in the street right opposite to where our workshop is now. And during my time as a cabinet maker, I was doing a lot of surfing and walking across the road, building cars in a little workshop across the road after I was finished at the cabinet shop. And that's where it all sort of began, building my own cars and learning how to do things from well-experienced mechanics from motorsport backgrounds a lot of years ago. And my love of cars just grew, and people asked me if I could do work for them with their race cars and their drag cars and things while I was still a cabinet maker, and it evolved from there.
Is that right now, it's Monday, the beach is packed, the cafes are full.
Yep. And we're cruising an 8-second sprint car. Doesn't get any better. Everything about this car has been set up and designed to be driven, apart from my hood scoop, which is a little hard to see over today because we haven't got the 2-inch on, we've got the 4-inch.
Not for me, I didn't even notice it until you said something.
Well, definitely we put a lot of work into making sure that the cooling systems work on these cars. This car has a really good transmission cooler system at the back of the vehicle. It has like cooling fans and everything on the transmission cooling system. They're thermatically controlled by the Haltech engine management system and the SmartWire system that we have on board. And we really don't have a problem. When you take the time to build the package properly, it's the result you get is driving around today. The water temperature is 69 degrees at, you know, we're cruising along at 40 k's an hour in traffic, and we have no problems with anything. We do a lot of the Queensland customers with our RB30 engines here, and we've got plenty of our street RB30 packages that are backed by Haltech engine management, Lex Fuel, that are running like low 9-second passes on full street cars. So we do a lot of different vehicles. It's not specifically just Turbo LS.
We're at ASG Motorsport.
Yep.
How about we go straight in, have a bit of a look around and introduce us to your other family?
Why not?
Come in and show us what's inside.
Now mate, that is a very, very neat looking, straight away, it's got an intake manifold that I recognise as LS.
Yep.
A little bit unusual to see on a twin turbo car, but can you tell me a bit about what the engine is and the intake setup?
So the engine is purely one of our street packages that we build for all our customers. So if we have a customer come in with an engine that would like a little bit more than say 700, 750 horsepower at the wheels, we change the block from a factory 6-litre alloy block, and we use an LQ9 cast iron block, which is what this is. We do a stroker kit in there with a rod and piston package that we put together. And we use a cast 821 head, as you see on here, and it's the standard LS7 intake manifold and standard 90mm drive-by-wire throttle body. And this engine is a hydraulic cam engine, genuinely one of our street packages, and that's where we put this whole package together, is to be able to do what we're doing here today, is open the bonnet and say to you, Scott, this is what we can give you. It's going to make 1,000 to 1,200 at the wheels on E85, and you can go shopping in it.
Yeah, so being hydraulic, there's not a huge amount of maintenance in this thing.
This engine's been in the car since the 2nd week of December. It's had fuel in it since the 2nd week of December, and it's never had the rocker covers off it since the 2nd week of December.
Yeah, so a true streeter.
Yeah, definitely. And That's including, we've been to the track multiple times now. We've run 8.1 at 171. Unfortunately, the holdback to our 8.1 from being a 7-second pass isn't the engine or the car. It's actually, we've reached our limitations of a couple of things, and they come around safety. So we really need a second parachute at that speed, which we haven't got on the car. We do need another set of injectors because we're at about 90% duty cycle on 24 pounds. So yeah, we need to get a bigger set of injectors or a second set of injectors. And you can't do the second set naturally on the standard intake. So we're just allowing this to be. That's the limitations of that street package.
It's interesting that you said we've got the stock inlet and stock electronic throttle body, which I love, that I'll ask about in a sec. But stock inlet manifold, is that like the done thing on LS? Look,
it's not if you want to have that really fancy sheet metal intake look. If you want to go down that expense, they start at around $3,500 and go up to about $7,000, depending on which company's manifold you buy or we build. But at the end of the day, we've found no issues with the standard intake manifold on this package and on our other packages we do, like in VE Commodores and that, to reach 700 to 1,000 horsepower. Like I said, this car clearly at 3,200 pounds, 171 mile an hour makes quite a bit more than 1,000 at the wheels, but we've found no limitations to it. There are definite benefits to the sheet metal intake. Like I say, we can go to a dual injector setup. We definitely get a bigger plenum volume, you know, which helps horsepower in that as well. But I don't believe that this holds this package back.
Man, if it's there and it works, that's awesome. Electronic throttle, old school muscle, man, congratulations, that's awesome. Why using electronic throttle on this?
For two reasons. Accelerator cables are ugly. Running an accelerator cable through a nice engine bay is probably about the single most ugly thing I think you can do to a car. So if you can run a drive-by-wire throttle body with a really nice fitment in the pedal, we use a standard GM pedal in there. It cleans up the engine bay immediately. It's 90 mil, which is what we usually typically go to in size. Like that 90 to 100 mil throttle body is capable of, you know, somewhere around 1,500 horsepower without any sort of restrictions. And probably the single best thing about drive-by-wire throttle, it's the best idle motor in the world.
Yeah, right. So nothing worse than when you jump in, even your street car that makes a few hundred horsepower and a thing doesn't cold start or idle properly. How do you find this thing goes for doing cold starting? And like, you could be forgiven, like it makes close enough to 1,000. You could be forgiven to say it doesn't start perfectly.
I disagree. I believe it does start perfectly. The ability to be able to control the throttle body under the different environments allows us to have perfect idle and perfect startability. You know, we have no issues with airflow restrictions like you do with some idle motors that don't actually pass enough air due to the type of camshaft or specific volume of air required under cold start environments. So this really does give us a no limitation idle motor, which I love.
Man, such a big deal for a car, especially in auto as well, where you're knocking it in and out of gear. It needs to be right.
Definitely. We honestly, we use this 90mm drive-by-wire throttle and that pedal in so many different engine conversions, and it's not just bolted onto an LS engine. You know, we use them in Toyota Supras when we do drive-by-wire conversions because they house a 90mm throttle body in our package for the performance side of things. We've used them on circuit cars that we've got with track cars because we can do a lot more advanced functions with the engine management system controlling the drive-by-wire as well for other items. And, you know, I don't think there is really a single more used item on the cars these days as there is with drive-by-wire throttle.
Yeah, I completely agree. So look, moving down through it, we mentioned before the fuel system that we're nearly out of fuel with this thing. How's the fuel system set up? So what are we running?
We've got a couple of fuel pumps in the back of the car with a fuel cell, and we use a MagnaFuel electric fuel pump on this car, just being that it's a street car.
Right.
Some of our race car packages we use mechanical fuel pumps, but this car just runs electric, so we can just drive it anywhere and do what we want. Like I say, the limitation we have currently at the moment is we only have 2200cc injectors in there on a standard manifold.
Only 220 pound or 220cc inject. Yeah. Okay. Regulator, and again, the same regulator that we see in every serious car.
Well, this regulator is a regulator that we've used for a long time with cars that run a lot of fuel pressure.
Right.
And the reality of why that regulator specifically is in this car is because It was the spare regulator to an R35 full tube chassis race car that we built some years ago, and we had a full spare engine package and parts for that. So I've been slowly using up consumable items that I had left over, and that was one of them. This car doesn't necessarily need that, extreme reach regulator for the higher fuel pressures, but we had it and we used it. Same as the Systems 1 remote oil filter on the CVR adapter and everything. We had it, so we used it and put it into the car.
It's a nice bitzer.
It is.
Exhaust manifolds and turbos?
They're all made here at ASG Motorsports. They're just a cast manifold with a 4-in-1 merge that we make here. All the fabrication's done by myself. We don't run an intercooler on the car. We believe that with E85 and our sort of, data and things that we find that we don't believe that we need intercoolers. So some people are still using them, but we're not using an intercooler on this car, and we're leaving us with a lot more room for a better radiator system and a better cooling system. We don't have a restriction in front of the radiator that you struggle to cool the radiator with by trying to pull air through an intercooler, and quite clearly it's not hurting the power.
No, of course not. And to make the power, what sort of turbochargers are you using?
These are another story, a bit like the regulator.
Yeah.
These are a pair of 7175s. They're quite outdated, believe it or not. We bought these turbos, I think it was 8 years ago, for a customer's job when we were in Perth. Customer paid a deposit, never picked up the turbos, never went through with the job, so we got stuck with them. So they got bitted onto the Torana along with the regulator and the oil filter.
It's funny that with all of this stuff, it's such a nice package.
Yeah, well, we spend a lot of time trying to set things out when we build a car. And as much as this is my own car, we do the same build with every project we do here. If we're doing a full build like we're doing on the customer's VL Calais here, the car gets built completely to the point where everything is mounted, the car is wired, running, turnkey. Then it's completely stripped and we decide where we're going to fix things, repair things, tidy it up, and then it gets sent for paint.
So it's such a nicely presented engine bay that we may as well go inside and have a look, because I know there's just as much detail in the middle and in the boot as there is out here. So let's go in and have a bit of a look inside.
No worries.
So Aaron, in here, it's beautiful. It's not what you'd expect out of a car that runs so fast and quick. The dash is very different to a normal Torana. What's up with this? Like, you've got, obviously, thank you, you've got everything on show for us, which is mad. The mounting bracket, what's up with this? What is this?
It's a 5/8 inch thick piece of billet aluminium, the full width of the car.
Right.
That we've had CNC'd. It's had all the negative pockets machined into it to house the dash, the smart wire and the ECU. And in the process, to try and make it look a little sharper, I just had my logo engraved into it with the CNC. But it was a different aspect of what we do with the cars to show that, we can do more than just put a folded sheet of aluminium with an autometer gauge into a car. It's about, showing the quality of the finish and the product that we present. We've put the race pack smart wire system together with the switch panel and everything at the top. We have no indicator arms or anything on the car. They're all done through the switches up here. And, everything's controlled completely by the Haltech and the smart wire system.
We've got the auto shifter down here. What's going on with the air solenoid on the back here?
Well, when we get the car into a bit more of a let's go real fast mode, it's a bit easier if you can have two hands on the steering wheel with these cars. I'm sure you've seen videos of this thing standing on the back bumper bar on a set of radials. So the CO2 bottle you have behind you runs the CO2 shifter here, so that changes gears for us when we're racing. Mm-hmm. It also controls the dual solenoid Haltech CO2 boost control system that we have, and we are also doing some other CO2 control in the car that no one else in Australia is doing at the moment. But it's just purely makes it easier for us to shift. We can have our hands on the steering wheel to control the trans brake and the bump, which is all managed through the 100 amp solid state relay that we get through Haltech, and just makes driving the car a little easier and a little safer.
And you know what, in something like this, safety, number one, you don't want to write yourself off. Number two, you don't want to scratch this thing.
We try not to, but we have scuffed the beaver a bit. But
except the rear bar. You can scratch that all you want.
Yeah, that's it. So, look, the car's a really well-presented car for what we've tried to achieve. We wanted a Pro Street look. We didn't just want a hotted up or a modified Torana. So that's why there's extensive changes in things to do with the dash and the crash pad and, you know, the way the door molds and stuff are all done. And, you know, the car's just finished off quite a lot different to most of the other Tiranas that you'll see.
And the trimming inside here, even the smell in here is like, it doesn't, well, first, I don't know how you got the Tirana smell out of it that's been in here for 50 years.
Yeah.
It doesn't smell like a Tirana, doesn't smell oily, doesn't smell fuely. It's just a normal car. Like,
It is. And look, I can't take full credit for the interior. We have a good friend of ours from the local trim shop here. His name's Jam. I did absolutely everything else on this car with some good mates of mine. But the interior, the actual trimming itself of the seats and the door cards and the crash pad, that's all done by Jam. And you can see that he's done a fantastic job getting all that crash pad mould around the roll cage and, you know, integrating everything else into the design and the fitment of what we wanted with the car.
Man, it's beautiful. I absolutely love it. Mate, thanks so much for taking the time out with us today. I know we, you know, going for a drive, picking us up from the airport, showing us the beach, giving it a few hits. I really appreciate it. I've had an awesome day, so I can't thank you enough.
Not a problem. Any time to drive the car is a good time for me.
Well, guys, that's all we've got time for today. As always, thanks very much for watching. My name's Scott, and we'll see you next time.